What is something that happens at casinos that is hidden from the public? Just how much money goes unclaimed and collected. I worked in the accounting department at one of the main gaming conglomerates and was tasked with cleaning up their unclaimed property accounts. There were players aka whales who deposited millions and just forgot about it for years. My dad, who died last month at age 90, was awfully good at finding machines that had money on them. Most of the time, it was basically pocket change, but he found a couple of 3-figure jackpots over the years. Of course, he would play around so nobody could accuse him of deliberately breaking rules. Lol. Love you, Dad. I wandered down to the basement of MGM from a truck ramp and man, it was like a whole city down there. Imagine a massive warehouse with roads and offices and supplies everywhere. The opposite of the glitz going on above it. My ex worked for MGM for a while and she hooked me up with a camped room at NYNY when I came to visit family. She met me at the check-in at NYNY and then asked if I wanted to see her office. She took me through a door, down some steps and then through several corridors, passing by laundries, cafeterias, locker rooms, offices, storage, etc. She would point out all of these different areas and points of interest along the way and all I could think of, where the hell are we? Are we even in the same hotel? We eventually go up some stairs and out a door and we're now at the valet at Aria next to where her office is located. Granted, we've only walked a few properties over, but it's simply unbelievable how much activity there is underneath those hotels. The number of kids who are left alone at a casino so mom and dad can gamble. Not on the floor, but gift shops or food courts. It's pretty sad. In Atlantic City there are a lot of unused stairwells and corridors, especially now that the casinos are not as busy. Many homeless people find their way into them and live. A friend of mine told me about a time they were using a stairwell to move furniture and drywall for a remodel. They found 2 landings with beds and clothing there and one resident claimed he had been there over a year. I knew someone who hit the jackpot on a slot. It was around $200,000. The casino managers came out to verify, but they said the machine malfunctioned and it didn't count. How is that legal? All the seats they have to replace because of the shockingly high number of PPL that evacuate their bladders and bowels in them. My friend and I were at a casino and while I was playing blackjack, my friend decided to do 10 push-ups for every hand I won. He was drunk. As he was doing his first set, the dealer tells me you really need to tell him not to put his face that close to the floor under this table. You can't imagine how disgusting it is. When the MGM Grand opened in Las Vegas, you walk through a giant lion's mouth to get to the front door. Many Asian gamblers saw it as a sign of bad luck so they wouldn't go in. Now it's a smaller statue. 90% of casinos have private areas for the high rollers, politicians, gangsters, and other VIPs. I was able to deal cards at one of those events. I was literally tipped $500 by some guy for keeping the water liquid. My wife is friends with a lady whose husband drives VIPs around for a casino. The top guys get assigned a special room with their own private butler. They might be gambling $100 K a hand and tipping $5 K for drinks, rides, etc. This reminded me of a story I heard when I was living in Australia. At the time one of the richest guys in Australia was Carrie Packer. Old man Packer liked to gamble and would regularly fly to Vegas and gamble huge. I dated a girl at the time who was a dealer in one of his casinos and said he was known to tip big and once had asked a cocktail waitress how much she had left on her mortgage and tipped her that much. Several years later I was in Vegas talking to Pit Boss and was relaying this story and without missing a beat he said, "That's a true story." Used to be a blackjack dealer in NV. To me, the most disgusting thing was watching people I knew, who were struggling to feed their families, come in and feed their entire paycheck into a slot machine or gaming table. And I was never allowed to say anything. Not on or off the job. I ended up quitting, as it was so depressing. Edit typo. My cousin works at a casino, and depending on what table he is working, requires a uniform vest tie clip change. There is a large employee room with hundreds of lockers. He shares his with 2 others that usually work different shifts areas than him. In the locker are 6 hooks, 2 for each person, a top cubby with 3 sections, for water bottles, etc., a lower section with 3 sections, for boots change shoes, and above the footwear section a 3-section mini locker that you bring your own lock, where you put your wallet, valuables, etc. that you can't have on your person when you are on the floor. The lockers are large enough to keep your section closed if you need to swap during your shift. He only very rarely runs into a locker buddy, unless they've picked up an extra shift, or if there is a special event. He is super short and his locker mates are a very tall man and an average height woman. He thinks locker mates are chosen very specifically to avoid thefts, minimal contact, etc., though he can't prove that. Robber Esmeraldas, the father of a friend of mine, was robbed, stabbed and killed in the parkade of a local casino in the late 90s, after he won big. It never made the news, and a friend of mine who worked at the same casino 5 years later swore I was making it up because she had never heard anything about it. After talking to a few security guys, she finally had someone give her an off-the-record, wink-nod confirmation that it did happen, but they went the extra mile to keep the story buried. Not totally hidden from the public since a member of the public, was shown it. But major casinos in Vegas have an armory room, stockpiles of weapons and tactical gear. Was staying at a casino on the main strip, and had a number of guns with me for a meet-up at a nearby shooting range, and asked the front desk if they had somewhere I could keep them since I didn't really like the idea of leaving them unattended in my room or car. A security guy came out and said follow me to the armory, and led me to an extremely secure room full of all kinds of rifles and vests and whatnot, pointed to an empty locking cabinet I could put my stuff in, and gave me a claim ticket to pick them back up again later. Not sure about Western casinos, but this is for Asian casinos. Asians generally subscribe to the supernatural and definitely the superstitions that go along with gambling. Casino owners tend to hire ghost babies, toils or cumin tongs, aborted baby spirits, to kind of curse players into losing. Superstitious players will bring candies, toss them under tables so the ghost babies leave them alone because of the candy bribe and let them win. A couple are not hidden, but not obvious to the average casino goer. Some casinos add scents to the air. They do not pump in extra oxygen in as some people believe. They also keep the temperatures on the cool side to keep people from getting sleepy. No clocks on the walls and, in general, no windows with views to the outside. UK government changed the law that all casinos have to have clocks now. They don't make them very big obviously, but they can lose their license if they fail an inspection. Secret VIP doors. I used to hang with high rollers. If you wagered over $400k plus a year at the casino, you're given a VIP card to access private rooms and lounges. Randomly next to a slot machine in the wall would be a card reader. Even if you did see it, you might assume it's a staff area, but in reality, it was a VIP lounge. One door opens to a huge balcony overlooking the lobby. Full bar, food, and private staff that will take care of you. I worked at a casino, well, the resort portion of the casino, for a summer. I don't have any sordid secrets, but general interesting things I learned. The security cameras are scary good. Like can read your name off your badge hanging off your waist good. You aren't doing a damn thing the camera can't see. At this casino, employees were required to wear badges clearly visible at all times when on the premises, even if not on the clock. Escorting your grandma to the bingo hall after your shift? Badge still better be visible. In the parking lot? Badge still better be visible. At this casino, employees were only allowed to gamble there 1 day a month. You'd think it'd be money right back into the casino's pocket, but they don't want the risk of an employee being heavily in debt. Which leads to the next point. Anyone getting a job within the casino itself is getting background checked, especially for bad credit and outstanding debts. If you're a guy down on his luck, with some maxed out credit cards and you want a job to get back on your feet, the casino doesn't want you. You're a liability, you're not worth the risk. All the cash goes into the vault. I assume it's a literal bank vault. But I've never seen the vault. Most employees have never seen the vault. You don't duck around when it comes to the vault. You better have a real good reason why you're approaching the vault. Security will turn your ass around and send you on your way, and you'll probably be flagged for questioning. People don't just stumble onto the vault, you end up there knowingly. And unless you were specifically, by name, called to the vault, or you have an urgent reason for being at the vault, for which you've already radioed ahead, showing up at the vault is a red flag. The community is going to have a two-sided relationship with the casino. This casino was on a reservation. Older generations see the casino as a chance to reinvest in the community, and it really does. Community centers, libraries, etc all paid for directly by the casino. I've never spoken to the tribe elders, but I have spoken to older people, and they all see opportunities for better lives for their kids and grandkids thanks to the casino. Younger generations suffer from some of the worst entitlement I've seen because of the casino. I can't tell you how many times in one summer I heard my family owns this casino, my family owns you, I can do what I want. Official policy was no one gets special treatment, even res kids. In practice, a lot of blind eyes get turned for people from the res. Obviously not when it comes to any gambling, that sheet's a zero tolerance policy. But the resort, bowling alley, movie theater that were all owned and operated by the casino? It's a shame seeing the older generation look at the casino as a blessing to their people, and younger people seeing it as a place where rules don't apply to them cause their granduncle is an elder or something. The large and growing bind is filled with homes and properties that casinos end up owning because people are so sure they're going to win, they borrow against their mortgage, and lose. A friend of mine's wife was an EA for the head of finance at a local casino, and mentioned to her that he doesn't want to be in the real estate business, as they had hundreds of mortgages in those binders they needed to clear so escrow away, from people who couldn't pay their debts. For casinos on Native American grounds, the amount of SAR that happen against female staff by male elders, who are apparently immune to prosecution on their own lands. They just terminate the workers who even hint at filing complaints, because those labor laws can't be enforced on their lands. I've heard firsthand about grabbing stories where the waitresses have to just deal with it, or they can leave, or be shown the door. The sheer amount of stealthy surveillance and tracking the moment you walk in the door. They know based on the NFC and the casino card they mailed you the moment you walk in, they have your name, age, income, and where you are in the casino. They'll root people out to find you, by name, and upgrade your card to allow you greater use of the facilities. This all happens well before advanced facial recognition starts mapping your movements through the gaming floors. The amount of money you can find just looking down on the floor. All sorts of cash. Not just on the casino floor but in the bathrooms and halls too. I went to Vegas recently and found $500 on the floor. We reported it to security but they just told us to keep it. The office in the basement where you can sign over your house for gambling money. We were just at Resorts World last weekend and there were signs in the elevators about how you could lay your debit card down at the tables. We don't drink or gamble. We were there to see Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and that idea just made us shudder. We also had to the casino ATM for some cash to have for dinner with friends and that fare charged $10. If you like to play slot machines, never play penny slots. Those are the machines that make the casinos their most money. Play quarter or dollar machines, you spend just as much or less each spin and they tend to have better payouts. But your brain says penny slots are cheaper but they have machines that you can hit $20 a spin and higher. Where I used to work, penny machines had a 14% hold while quarter and dollar machines had an 8% hold. The hold is how much the machine will win over the lifetime of the machine. The higher the hold, the more you are likely not to win. Also, a machine is never due. They use random number generators that act the moment you hit the spin button or pull the arm. The machine already knows if you have won or not and everything you see in front of you is for your entertainment. Always use your player's card. Yes, they track your play and try to lure you back based on how you play, but it's also how they determine if they give you things. Every casino has its own scent. They want you to associate that smell with the casino subconsciously. It's like going to the movies and you smell the popcorn and your brain is ready for the experience. Had a friend that worked one of the party pools at a Vegas casino, similar to the former rehab at Hard Rock. He said that an average of 12 people die a year, and if no one notices, they are directed to just leave the person there, that is, if they are on a float or lounge chair. I used to work at an Indian casino who was a customer of ours. The tribe takes their cut and basically don't work or even show up. A few of the kids were given token jobs like security but just sit in the booth not actively doing anything. Everyone else who had to pick up the slack hated them. The main board is called the tribal council, and although they had primo parking spots they never showed up when I was there. I sold to their department and as a whole, was shocked how much access they had to all of the systems. We could pull up real-time slot machine traffic and payouts. We could access everyone the security cameras picked up. Anybody with a player's card we could track their movements and winnings. Anybody staying at the hotel they knew everything about them, and their spouses. Infrared cameras. Ladies don't wear a red dress into a casino. What does a red dress do on infrared? It's basically any thin clothing. However, some colors simply don't absorb much ambient heat from your surroundings. Some lighter reds, lighter blues and white. Think white shirt vs black shirt in direct sunlight. So, the infrared camera is going to notice what's underneath and pick up your body heat rather than your clothing since your skin is warmer. What this does is show things underneath, like lingerie, or that there's no other clothing under the dress, which is probably common in Vegas. That's simplest way to explain. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I worked at MGM for a while. Overall it sucked TBH, but I will say they had an incredible break room. Like full on restaurant quality food for us, no charge. Even cooks you could custom order sandwiches from if you didn't want the meals on offer for that night. I put on a bit of weight working there. On extremely gluttonous days I would get to work, eat some corn or clam chowder before work, break time full meal of like meat, potatoes, veggies etc. Then at the end of my shift around 8 AM could even go in again and have pancakes and bacon. Just ridiculous honestly. I'm talking real food, don't imagine microwave stuff. I worked at a racetrack casino for a summer, and what surprised me the most was how intense the hiring and training process was. I knew there would be a background check and drug test, but I also had to get certified by my state's Racing and Games Commission. It wasn't a difficult process, but it took forever and they took my fingerprints, which I thought was weird. It was basically like I was getting security clearance. And everyone who worked there had to do it, even if they were working at the adjoining hotel and never stepped foot into the actual casino. Once I got hired I had to watch a bunch of orientation videos that were required by the state or federal government. One was about recognizing the signs of gambling addiction and when to intervene with guests who showed these signs. Like how bartenders have to cut people off. It was pretty obvious that they only showed that video because they had to and they didn't want us to cut off their best customers. And then there was a PowerPoint and quiz mandated by a federal agency, either the FBI or SEC, I can't remember, about fraud and tax evasion. Basically, if someone won over a certain amount, I think $5,000, in one day they had to report their winnings to the IRS before they could leave with their money. And there were ways that people tried to game the system to get out of paying taxes. Like they would cash out just under the threshold, so if the $5,000 number was correct, they would cash out $4,999 and wait to collect more until the next day. So either they do a transaction before midnight and another after, or they take their chips home to bring back later. Or they could get other people to collect money for them. So casino staff was supposed to be on the lookout for any sort of shady behavior that could be tax avoidance. And if you had suspicions but no proof, they had a computer program for you to input profiles with any details you could gather: name, physical description, amount won, so security could keep an eye out. I never had to do this since I worked at the racetrack and not the actual casino, but it was crazy to me that the dealers and other casino employees had to worry about all that on top of their regular job duties. The pay was pretty good but not enough for investigating financial crimes. Burglaries of the rooms. I was staying at the Four Queens downtown many years ago and my room was burglarized in what was clearly an inside job. Housekeeping had cased the room, they picked which bags had which items at the time. Then when the burglary happened later that evening, they ignored much more valuable items in bags that had not arrived until later and were not part of the initial scan. They then tried to extort us after calling later at night. Management would not provide video, call logs, or other data and was totally useless, as, interestingly, was LVPD. Never in my life has it been clearer that something was organized crime.